This place has everything. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
That performance deserves a holy wallawa.
It's a feeling you cannot explain.
This place is louder than any other venue in the Big Ten.
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon.
Welcome to that show out west, that live show out west for that team out west. I'm Ted LaRue. You know, on our last show, we had Travis Rookle from Ducks Rising on, and we were talking about momentum as far as recruiting goes. Hey, USC's been able to stack up a class early right now, and maybe some other schools are kind of having some momentum as it currently stands. In Oregon, like, yeah, okay, they just got a transfer punter, James Ferguson Reynolds. Very excited about that, by the way. But the last high school commitment for the class of 2026, I believe, was in late February when Xavier Larice, who's a high 3-star, low 4-star defensive back, committed to this class. So a lot of fans are getting a little bit antsy. It's that spring lull, as Travis said. So the question naturally becomes, when is this going to happen? When are we going to start to really see some of these commitments pour in for the class of 2026? Well, the answer might be right about now, because we've got, in a couple of days, we've got 2 big-time commitments scheduled, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. Kayden Dixon-Wyatt, the top 100 4-star wide receiver from Mater Dei. He is going to commit at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. Jared Curtis will commit at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time on Monday, that being Cinco de Mayo. And, you know, I got a feeling that there's going to be some Oregon fans that are going to be, well, they're going to be downing margaritas regardless, whether it's going to be in celebration or maybe drowning away some of the misery. I got a feeling that over there on May 5th on that holiday, there might be some drinks consumed. Let's just put it that way, in one reason or another. Now, there's also the impending commitment date of Jackson Cantwell as well. So all of these have kind of been grouped into a group of 3 as it currently stands right now. So there's a possibility out there where Oregon could sweep. Now, we talked about it on the last show when we talked about momentum. Hey, it's maybe a little bit, it's more of a Twitter word or a narrative and all of that stuff. But getting a 4-star wide receiver, the top quarterback, and the top offensive tackle, yeah, it doesn't get, momentum certainly doesn't get any bigger than that. Let's just put it that way. Why don't we? There would certainly be a lot of folks around college football recruiting that would be talking about the Oregon Ducks. Okay, so there's that. And then there's the possibility that maybe they strike out on all of these guys right now. But we're going to be riding the roller coaster, certainly, a little bit. The message boards are going to be on fire. They're going to be on fire, I think, regardless of what happens. But today, I want to start out with some positivity, because we're going to ride the roller coaster a little bit during this show. I'll fair warn you maybe right there. But I want to start with some positivity. Tom Loy, the national recruiting analyst over at 24/7 Sports, they went on a CBS 24/7 Sports recruiting show, and there was a lot of optimism that maybe, just maybe, Oregon could pull off this thing.
Over the last couple weeks, I was leaning heavily towards Oregon. Now everybody around him says it is a coin flip. It's 50-50. The decision is not made. One day he's feeling Oregon, one day he's feeling Georgia. I think people inside the family are kind of preferring the Bulldogs. I think that they were very happy when he once committed to Georgia, not so much when he decommitted to open up his process. I think, and I wrote this today at 247sports.com, I think that Jared's gut feeling, his heart, I think it's kind of leaning towards Oregon. So I'm going to lead towards Oregon because I think in the end that's what Jared wants. But again, everybody around him says he doesn't know for sure. He's going to meet with Mike Bobo at Georgia and Will Stein at Oregon. He's going to meet with them once, potentially twice this week before he makes a decision. And then somebody even told me that, yes, they have a decision made for Monday, announcement made for Monday afternoon. There is still an outside shot that it gets postponed because it's that close. So again, don't look for any crystal ball predictions. I think we're just going to let this one play out, but it's back and forth, and there could be some interesting repercussions in how this kind of plays out, because I know we've been talking about Jackson Cantwell, 5-star offensive tackle for a long time, one of the top players in the country. Miami's the lone crystal ball pick on his profile, but it wouldn't shock me if he ends up kind of seeing where Jared decides to go. Cantwell's strong considering Oregon and Georgia. It wouldn't shock me if those guys, they talk regularly. I know that for a fact. One decision from Jared could play a big factor in Jackson of who he wants to protect in college. I think when Kaden Dixon-Wyatt makes his decision, it's going to be Oregon or Ohio State. USC is going to battle over the next couple days. Kaden Dixon-Wyatt knows where he wants to go. He's got his mind made up. But I do think that it's a lot of back and forth between Oregon and Ohio State. I think he's got some tough conversations to have. We'll see if somebody changes his mind. USC is doing all they can. I'm going to give a slight edge to Oregon right now. But like I said, really close with Ohio State.
Wow, okay, so it could be a great couple of days for Oregon getting
they could
potential
use it.
Quarterback and wide receiver.
We're going to get into a little bit later each one of these players and, hey, what happens? What's kind of the fallout if the Ducks get all three of them? What happens if they swing and miss on all three of these guys? So we'll tackle that a little bit later on during the show. Now, we're going to break down the recruitment and my prediction where I think Kaden Dixon-Wyatt and Jared Curtis will both commit to. And once we kind of get through all that, I'm going to open up the phone lines. I want to hear from you at that point in time. Also, make sure to leave your thoughts in the chat of where you think each one of these guys are going to go and how this whole Oregon trifecta might certainly work out. The call-in number there on the left side of your screen, 541-367-6390. That's 541-367-6390. All right, let's dive in to our first player that we want to break down, and then our first player that we want to predict, that being the 4-star wide receiver from Santa Ana, California, from Mater Dei, the creme de la creme of high school football programs out there. There's no question about that. Now, as it pertains to Kaden Dixon-Wyatt, this really has been a two-horse race for a while. This really has been an Oregon-Ohio State battle for a large amount of time. Okay, let's see. 6 of the last 7 visits, and I think that really started in late February, if I remember correctly, or late January. Excuse me. 6 of the last 7 visits in this recruitment have been either to Ohio State or to Oregon. Okay, the one visit was when Kaden Dixon-Wyatt visited USC on February 1st. Now, USC is very interesting to mention. You heard Tom talk about it there, where they're maybe a little bit late to the party. Okay, a little bit late, but they're still very much involved in this recruitment. Now, Oregon and Ohio State, right, they're probably up here. USC is kind of lurking as that dark horse. We know that USC certainly wants to protect California. They've done a really good job with in-state recruiting. Maybe a late push might give the Trojans a little bit more of a shot here down the road. So that's something certainly worth going after. So 1 visit to USC, 3 visits to Oregon, 3 visits to Ohio State. So you can understand that. Now, here's the thing about a wide receiver recruiting battle against the Buckeyes. It's hard. It's difficult, right? Whether we like it or not, that's wide receiver you. The proof is in the pudding, as Dan Lanning says. Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, it's right there. It's right there in front of you. Brian Hartline has done a fantastic job. Now, here's one other connection and tidbit that if you're a viewer of TSOW, you certainly already know this because I've talked about this on the program before, but Chris Henry Jr. is a modern-day teammate of Kaden Dixon-Wyatt. So is there a little bit in-house recruiting going on over there? Not sure, but it's a possibility, certainly. So you got to factor in that connection, certainly, as well. Now, let's kind of go on to the here and now. Let's go on to the here and now as it pertains to KDW. This seems to very much be favoring Oregon. Scoop Duck recruiting analyst on 3 Network, Max Torres, today logged his prediction for Oregon to land Kaden Dixon-Wyatt. And there's been a lot of other juice coming out ever since his last Oregon visit that this seems to be becoming more and more. It is a growing possibility. Oregon had his last visit. That was on April 18th. He set his commitment date 12 days later on April 30th. That's usually a good sign. When you got the last visit, the commitment date comes shortly thereafter, you feel like you're in a pretty good spot at that point. And I think Oregon should feel like they're in a pretty good spot. Like, this is probably the priority wide receiver target. I know Messiah Hampton is sitting out there. Of course, Ross Douglas has the connection with having recruited him when he was over at Syracuse. So you got to factor those two things and tie those two things in, certainly. But Kaden Dixon-Wyatt has been a priority wide receiver, certainly, in this class, to really hold on to that modern-day pipeline. That's something I think that we got to start talking about. Lost Tomahini Tupoy on the defensive line. Lost Cody Green on the offensive line. And now you're sitting there with a goose egg of modern-day commits right now. So being able to kind of keep that pipeline alive, even though maybe USC is really starting to do a lot better in that respect in Southern California, we know how important Mater Dei is because it's the best high school football program in America. So being able to kind of get back into it with a KDW commitment, I think would certainly be huge right now for the Oregon Ducks. So I think I feel really good about Kaden Dixon-Wyatt becoming an Oregon Duck. I didn't always feel that way, because when he visited Ohio State on April 12th, there was a lot of reports going on out there that the Buckeyes are sitting in a really good spot right now. But there's some Ohio State people, there's some other people from kind of other maybe more neutral spots that recognize that this one certainly is carrying a lot of momentum in that favor. And really, when you look at the skill set of Kaden Dixon-Wyatt right now, you look at his frame, he's sitting there 6'2", 180 pounds. And the thing I really like about him is he is excellent at going up and getting the football, right? You watch it right here, the body control, kind of backpedaling a little bit there, but he's still able to adjust his body and get into great position to catch the football. On his modern day tape, he's running out of the slot. He's running out wide. This is kind of another example where he's able to kind of really one-on-one, really tight coverage, but he has the wherewithal to not only catch the ball, but able to get in bounds as well. He runs really precise routes. And the thing about KDW, like the thing that stands out on a lot of scouting reports, of course, is the frame, going up, 50-50 balls, getting the football, but things like that. But this is one clip that I want to show you here. This is a quick out route from Kaden Dixon-Wyatt. Boom! Catches the football and then burst. That's one thing that when he gets into the open field, he can certainly show that burst. I'm not sure if he has that. I'm not sure if he has that vertical deep ball explosiveness, get over the top type of ability like maybe some other folks that we've seen at Oregon. But he certainly has that one-on-one contested ball, come down with the football. That's certainly where Kaden Dixon-Wyatt really excels in all of this. All right, folks, it is prediction time. Where do I think Kaden Dixon-Wyatt is going to go? I think he's coming home. I think he's going to be a Duck. There's been a lot of momentum, as I said, and a lot of chatter surrounding KDW right now going to Oregon. I think Oregon has put a lot of resources in him being committed to this class right now, and this would be a big win. This would be a big time win if he's able to go out and beat Ohio State in a wide receiver battle where the Buckeyes certainly think a lot about KDW as well. So that certainly has to play into this whole equation certainly as well. So I've got Kaden Dixon-Wyatt becoming an Oregon Duck. All right, folks, strap into your seatbelts because this is maybe what you all came here to see. This is the show that you all came to see. And it's Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback in the country. Now, when we start talking about Jared and his recruitment, it's really interesting as it pertains to Jared, as it pertains to Oregon and Georgia, who are the two finalists right now for Jared, because we were sitting at the beginning of last football season and both the Bulldogs and the Ducks were kind of feeling pretty good with their top quarterbacks. Oregon had Jonas Williams out of the state of Illinois. Really good, high 4-star type of prospect. He's an Elite 11 finalist, I believe. Of course, now he's flipped over to USC, but they were feeling good. At the start of the season, Jared Curtis was committed to Georgia. And then Jared Curtis decommitted from Georgia. That was he committed to Georgia on March 24th, 2024. He decommitted from Georgia on October 17th, 2024. And then that kind of opened things. It opened the door for Oregon. And then after the season, after New Year's Day was over, you really started to see this thing kind of play out, where you could start to tell that Oregon, even with a Jonas Williams commitment, was putting more resources. They were putting a lot of attention to try to grab that number one quarterback in the country, of course, being the aforementioned Jared Curtis. And that's likely what led to the decommitment of Jonas Williams and then him flipping over to USC. And then you see this recruitment kind of play out the way it has right now. This recruitment's been very tough to peg. I think you got to give credit to the Curtis camp, to the Curtis family, because not a lot has gotten out. And we don't really know a lot about this recruitment. Like in the prior recruitment that I just talked about, Kayden Dixon-Wyatt, here coming on down the stretch, you got the way that this specific recruitment is trending. You don't have that feeling with Jared. It is literally a coin flip. Quite literally a flip of the coin, because he hasn't visited either of these two schools very recently. He has just 2 unofficial visits since February. He visited Oregon on March 8th, shortly thereafter, March 13th, over to Georgia. He was, I think, scheduled to, or shouldn't say scheduled, but maybe it was, they thought that he would visit during the 2 spring games for Oregon and Georgia. He's like, nah, I'm going to go to prom instead. Good for him. Right? Good for him. These high school experiences, sometimes when you're a big time recruit, they sacrifice these experiences. So, hey, it's always good to kind of go out and do those things. And these last 2 in-home visits that were from Will Stein, offensive coordinator at Oregon, of course, Mike Bobo, offensive coordinator at Georgia, they were canceled. They were scheduled to be there on Sunday. So it's a really, really tough read, I think, as it currently stands right now. What's the biggest factor? Distance. If Jared Curtis was playing football at Odessa Permian or somewhere out in West Texas or somewhere kind of in the middle, 1,000 miles to Athens, Georgia, 1,000 miles to Eugene, Oregon, I'm not going to say for certain, but I'd feel really, really good that Oregon would have this commitment by now. Distance, I think, is a big deal for the family. If you've been following over at Scoop Duck, owner and publisher Justin Hopkins has been writing a lot about this. It's distance. It's distance. It's distance. This Georgia coaching staff is trying to harp into stay at home. Even when Georgia does go on the road, very much within traveling distance from Nashville, Tennessee, which of course is where he's living and going to high school right now. So. And then the distance all the way up to Oregon. The question for the Ducks is, what are they doing right now to be able to kind of close that gap, to be able to kind of make that maybe not as big of a factor? Are the NIL collective ponying up cash so that parents can fly out and see Jared and his home games? Or how exactly is that gap being closed? That's something that we'll probably never know, of course, but it's certainly something that certainly plays into this as well. Now, when you take distance out of it, and maybe this goes into my 1,000 there and 1,000 here type of consideration, and you just compare, all right, you're the number 1 quarterback in high school football, and obviously you want to go to a place that will get you to be able to be drafted, make as much money in the NFL as possible, have as much success as quarterback friendly of a team and an offense and a scheme as possible. And it's no comparison when it comes to offensive scheme, when it comes to talent around you, when it comes to quarterback friendly offenses, when it comes to your ability to put up production. It's Oregon. And I'm not saying that just because I'm hosting an Oregon show. I'm saying that because that's what the record certainly shows right now. How about back-to-back Heisman finalists for the Oregon Ducks? You look at kind of some of these last guys, Carson Beck was in there, and he was pretty good. Even Stetson Bennett, a guy that won back-to-back national championships. Like, he wasn't maybe the top factor in reason to carry Georgia to championships. They had an elite defense. They had certainly a great run game, right? That was kind of in the mold of like Michigan was kind of built the same way, certainly as well. But if you look at the offenses for Oregon, like look at what Bo Nix was able to do. Look at what Dylan Gabriel certainly was able to do as well. Like the proof is in the pudding, I think, when it comes to Oregon, when you're comparing them over to the Georgia Bulldogs. And like I was feeling really good about Oregon with this recruitment. I was feeling superb with this recruitment in like after those visits in like early April and mid-April, because you were starting to hear, all right, late April, this is when we're expecting a commitment. We're going to hear a commitment date, and Oregon is sitting in a really good spot. And you hear it, and the days go by, and the days go by, and the days go by, and then you don't hear anything. And then all of a sudden in late April, you hear, here comes Georgia. Here comes Kirby Smart. It sounds like they made a late push. Whether that was a late NIL push, I tend to believe that's what it was, or whatever kind of push it was, Georgia made that push. And I think that made things even. That made things a little bit more even. It brought it maybe a little bit closer to 50-50. Now, here's the thing. Oregon's got 50, Georgia's got 50. We talk about the coin flip. Oregon still has as good a chance as Georgia certainly sits right now. We'll get to the prediction here in just a minute. But what makes Jared Curtis great? I want to talk about that right now. He's very fun to watch, certainly on tape right now. He has clear arm strength and talent, both on platform and off platform. Like you look at this, his ability to kind of escape from the rush and then fire on the run down the field as well. Just very comfortable in his game, in the pocket as well. Like when you look at a high school quarterback, I think the main thing that you want to see is the arm strength, because sometimes at the college level, they need to be able to build that arm strength up. But you've seen it here on a couple of deep throws that he certainly has that ability to get the ball down the field. Not only that, but certainly put it in the right spot as well. And, you know, like his mobility is certainly exciting. He's a little bit of a gunslinger. He's a little bit of a magician, certainly at times, but he can create that second opportunity. He can create that third opportunity. And he can certainly throw it on a dime down the field as well. Like you kind of look at the mobility of someone like a Bo Nix, of course, Dylan Gabriel, and how Will Stein kind of implemented that within the Oregon offense. You can certainly see how that could certainly come out of here with Jared Curtis in there at quarterback right now. And I just, you know, you see this tape and you watch it and you keep on rolling back the clips and you say, yeah, you're probably with all those skill sets and with the weapons at Oregon, you got to think the ceiling is going to be higher for Jared at Oregon as compared to Georgia. But once again, distance is a huge, huge factor in all of this right now. Okay, folks, it is prediction time. And I said at the beginning of this that there were going to be some ups and there were going to be some downs. I felt really good about where Oregon was sitting mid-April. When Georgia got back into the race, some maybe doubts started to creep into my mind. And I think the thing that I want to say before I really show my prediction is this. I think, man, and it's tough. It's tough right now. But the thing that I want to say is this. I think the way Georgia was able to just hang around is very key. And I think one thing that he said when the original decommitment also kind of plays into my mind as well. He said, quote, "This morning I spoke with Coach Smart," this is when he decommitted, "and let them know I still love Georgia, but I would like to take some more time to explore all my options so I can make the best, most informed decision for my future." Curtis said, "I let them know it just doesn't seem fair to stay committed while checking out other programs. I want to know where I stand, and I've been making and learned that making big decisions takes some time." So it wasn't that he was like, you know, some people when they decommit, they kind of really break it off from a particular school. I just think that he wanted to make the right decision. And it's not very often that you see a player decommit and then commit to the same school that he decommitted to. but I think that's the way I'm going right now. My prediction is that I think Jared Curtis ends up at Georgia. I really think the prolonged status of this has probably caused the NIL figure to continue to go up. Oregon, I think, sits there and say, we probably got 2 years of Dante Moore. There's some other stuff kind of thrown around in there. And we know Jared is a huge priority right now for Oregon. But I think there might be a place where Oregon maybe caps off with when it comes to financially. Knowing in the back of their head, say, we've got an elite quarterback right now. We feel really good about our quarterback room. And where things are going to go next, whether it's with Jared or without, we feel really confident in the way that's going on right now. I think Georgia maybe feels a little bit more of a sense of urgency at quarterback, but maybe not. I would be, and like I said, this is a coin flip. So I'm kind of going out and trying to read some of the tea leaves, which it's been very difficult to be able to read this, to be brutally honest with you. But the fact of the matter is, other than that Tom Loy comment, I have not seen a lot of steam or momentum or anything really in Oregon's favor. There's some people over at On3, like Steve Wiltfong is saying, hey, this is good for Georgia or that's good for Georgia, and all of these other comments. So it's tough. It's tough right now. I think this prolonged recruitment seems to favor the Georgia Bulldogs, so I'm going to kind of throw it that way for my prediction. Let's talk about the fallout, because there's so many different ways that we can spin this thing. There's so many different directions that we can go as it stands right now. So let's talk first about like the 3-0 versus 0-3. Let's start and talk about, because no matter what happens, if I should say 2-0 versus 0-2, because the first thing that's going to happen and the where these eyeballs are going to go after May 5th is Jackson Cantwell. Jackson Cantwell, the number one offensive tackle in the country, is set to take a visit to Georgia on May 10th. He's set to commit on May 13th. All right. So that's where things are going to go. And you heard in the soundbite from Tom at the top of the show that these two guys have been talking to each other. I would say there's probably like a 60, 70% possibility that Jared Curtis and Jackson Cantwell end up at the same school. I feel pretty confident in that fact, to be honest with you. So that's kind of how I feel about that, because that's where the eyes are going to go right now. But I'll tell you what, if Oregon is able to get not only Kaden Dixon-Wyatt, but they're able to get Jared Curtis, and then they're able to get Jackson Cantwell, like they are well on their way to the number one class in the country right now. Like that is some elite level talent right now. Okay. But I kind of want to go back the other way. Like that's fairly obvious, right? If they're able to get all of those guys. But what if they don't? Because if they don't, whether it's Duck Twitter or Duck message boards, everything is going to be terrible, right? Because there's people in the fan base that have been yearning for a commitment for some time, and they've seen a lot. They've seen like USC get a lot of other commitments, certainly out there as well. So what's the fallout from that? And I don't think maybe it's as bad as you think, because decommitments, flips, and then missing out on these guys is actually not the end of the world right now. It's not the end of the world, because if they miss out on Ryder Lyons, even if they missed out on Kayden Dixon-Wyatt, let me break it down for you. And Jackson Cantwell, throwing that one in there as well. Ryder Lyons is still sitting out there. Now, I think he was RPM'd over to USC, but Oregon, with all of the resources pushing him at quarterback, who's also a 5-star. We know he's going to be a 27 kid because of the Mormon mission, certainly coming up. But Ryder Lyons, I think, is sitting in a spot where Oregon could certainly put in the resources for him. You still got Emmanuel Ahinacho out there. After his recent visit to Oregon, he proclaimed Oregon his leader right now. Calvin Obot, an offensive tackle who's a 4-star prospect from the state of Idaho. He has Oregon in his top 5. So even if Cantwell or Curtis doesn't go, you can still get a 5-star quarterback, you can still get a 5-star offensive tackle, and you can still get a 4-star offensive tackle. Like, you can still bring in talent that could get you close to the number one spot in this class. or at least a top 5 class, certainly at that point in time as well. So that's how. And then I think when you look at the quarterback position, like if they're not able to get Jared and they're not able to get Ryder, there's a couple of different ways to kind of look at this. And I've talked about this one before. You're not setting a great precedent if you had what happened with Jaron Kavawi-Sagapulitelli, and that's not Oregon's fault. It's not Oregon's fault. That was just kind of a weird situation, but high 4-star, 5-star quarterback that still flipped away from your program. You had what happened with Jonas Williams, Jared Curtis, and Ryder Lyons. Like, you swing and miss on all of these quarterbacks. That's not a good precedent to set. And boy, when this thing comes to signing day, I would be surprised. I would be very, very surprised if Oregon misses. It ends up missing on all 4 of those when it all kind of boils down to it. But that's certainly something that could happen. There's no doubt about that. But Oregon has become a destination for transfer quarterbacks, folks. It has. It has. Like, so even if they miss on these high school players, like we've seen, and I think people have posted this on Twitter recently, just how much volatility there is and how much movement there is for top quarterbacks in the country. And then for quarterbacks that are kind of rising through the ranks, like your Cam Wards and your John Mateers and guys that can transfer up to a bigger program. Oregon is going to be in that position. Now, you don't want to rely on transfer quarterbacks because it's unpredictable. You can go into a high school recruiting class, you can evaluate it, and most of the time, the number 1 quarterback is pretty damn good. Okay, let's just put it that way. There's no guarantee when it comes to the transfer portal, and we don't know what in the next 2 to 3 years with this House settlement and all these rules, what exactly is going to happen with the transfer portal as well. But Oregon has proven a lot of times over that they can certainly go out there and they can get a big name quarterback in the transfer portal as well. And then you look at the wide receiver position. Now, I'm like 80% sure. Do I go to 90? I'd like 80% sure Kayden Dixon-Wyatt will be a Duck. Okay, I'm pretty damn confident with that. But if he's not, remember, you still got Gatlin Bear coming in off a Mormon mission, who was a 5-star. Messiah Hampton still out there. Jalen Lott is still out there. You could have a 5-star, let's call Gatlin Bear a 5-star, and a handful of 4-stars that are really, really good. So I think, regardless, Oregon is sitting in a good spot, but you want to be able to build in these elite level prospects, because these 4-stars that you might settle for, as opposed to these 5-stars that you might be able to get, that could be the difference between a national championship and maybe another quarterfinal exit. A lot of stuff to really talk about right now. But now I want to open up the phone lines, kind of get into the chat a little bit, and I want to talk some recruiting here with you. So let's dive into it. Our Peters chiming in saying, big viewer of the show. Thanks for coming on by here today. Rear XNZ comes in the chat saying, Kayden is the most likely of the 3 to commit. I certainly agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I'm pretty sure that he is going to commit. At this point, the way things are certainly trending, I would be surprised if he doesn't commit. Reminder, phone number to call in, 541-367-6390. That's 541-367-63, or it's 357, I think. It's on the screen there, 6390. It's very small on my screen as I'm looking at it right now. Barry chimes in the chat saying, I'm confident on the Ducks of getting Kayden on Saturday and Jared over there on Monday. Boy, what a week in change this would really be if Oregon can go out and they can get Kaden Dixon-Wyatt at wide receiver, they can get Jared Curtis in there at quarterback, and they can get Jackson Cantwell on the offensive tackle. You found your quarterback of the future to throw the football to. You found a high-level impact wide receiver that can catch passes, and then you've got the guy that can protect said quarterback from being hit right now. So there's that. Barry also chimes in. He's not so sure on Cantwell. I've got a feeling that Jared Curtis and Jackson Cantwell, I'd probably say 60 to 65% sure. I'm 60 to 65% sure that those two would follow each other. That's where I'm sitting right now. I'm fairly, there was some Instagram stories and stuff that was put out there, but I'm pretty certain. I'm pretty certain that those two are going to line up in the same place because you've got Cantwell, his final three: Oregon, Georgia, and Miami. Of course, Oregon and Georgia for Curtis. And these guys talk. These elite level prospects, they talk all the time. Like that's not out of the realm, right? We know that happens. So yeah, I feel pretty strongly that Curtis and Cantwell are going to go to the same spot right now. So yeah, Keon Johnson coming in saying Jared will be a Duck. And I didn't really mention this in my monologue or my commentary really as well, but the plan for Jared is very seamless, especially if you get 2 years of Dante Moore, where you got Dante Moore, of course, playing this season in 2025. You've got Dante Moore playing in 2026. And Jared Curtis would be a freshman in 2026, likely takes his red shirt. And then that next year, his second year on campus, he's able to step in and be a starter, maybe like a 2-year starter at Oregon, possibly, depending on how quickly, certainly, he progresses in there. The Ryder Lyons situation becomes a little bit interesting because if you get 2 years of it's like 2 years of Dante would get you to 25 and 26. Ryder comes in as 27. So maybe that could be the year of Austin Novosad. So Ryder can kind of learn a little bit. It kind of goes down a little bit further. And, once you get talking 2027, you're talking 2028. I mean, Duck football, college football, it seems very, very different at that point in time. There's no doubt about that. Keon saying, you got to trust in it, baby. You got to trust Dan. Like, that's another thing that, we just haven't seen it in a while, but Dan can lull you to sleep sometimes. I think that's one thing that's very important to note. That he can kind of be just laying there in the weeds. Just laying around. Nobody's talking about him, and all of a sudden, bam, he strikes. Comes out of nowhere, and he gets 1 and 2 and 3 commitments in like 5 days or something like that. Now, it's usually a little bit closer to the early signing period, the early signing day. But maybe that's kind of what if that's where things are sitting right now? What if it's Dan kind of, we're laying in the weeds. We're going to wait until some of these big commitment dates, and then bam, we are going to put on the full court press, and we're going to get a top quarterback, and we're going to get a top offensive tackle. It's certainly within the realm of possibility. Let's just be it that way as well. Keon really saying that he believes Jared Curtis will be an Oregon Duck, and also believes that Jackson Cantwell will also follow him to Oregon as well. I'm very curious to see what happens if Cantwell, regardless of what happens with the other guys, but if Jackson Cantwell does commit to Oregon, what happens with Emmanuel Ahinacho? That's something that I'm very curious to see what happens. Because I think I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people in college on the offensive line, like, they want to play left tackle, right? That's certainly the prime position. That's the position that everybody looks forward to. Everybody knows you're going to be more highly drafted when you're sitting in there at left tackle. Everybody gets that, okay? But someone needs to play right tackle at some point in time. So how does that all kind of come to fruition? I'm not sure if Oregon can land Jackson Cantwell and Emmanuel Ahinacho. I've always maybe just Kelvin Obot maybe took the place of Cody Green, because it's always like, hey, we're going to play Cody Green at right tackle, and it's going to be Cantwell or Ahinacho over there at the left tackle spot. Maybe that's just how these things are going to go, okay? And maybe you're just subbing guys out, but I'm not sure if I see both of those 5-star tackles here coming to Oregon right now. More from Keon. Keon hitting the chat, lighting up the chat here today. I believe Dan is just waiting for his time to strike. He's not going to miss out on all 3. I refuse to believe Dan is going out like that. I mean, that's true. George is a pretty heavy player. In this as well. So I'm extremely intrigued to see how this is all going to end up. I've got the feeling that if we see Jared commit and if we see Jackson commit, and I already talked about how good I feel about Kayden Dixon-Wyatt right now, I think that we are going to see Oregon be well on their way to being the number one class in the country, which the thing about being the number one class in the country is good. It's great. It's grand. No yelling on the bus. But where that really I think people should really start to look at that and start to talk about it is this. Is the reason why the number one class is special is because you're bringing in elite talent that can help you win a national championship. That's what recruiting really is in the begin with. You want to bring in as good of talent as you can, because if your talent starts at a 3, they can jump to a 7. But if your talent starts at a 5, they can jump to an 8.5 or a 9 or whatever it be. If you start with a higher level of talent, you're going to have a higher level of player in 2 years from now, in 3 years from now. That's what matters. If you're number 1, it's great. If you're number 2, it's great. If you're number 3, it's great. But what the meaning is, and when you're number 1, it means you've got more talent in this recruiting class, as rated by the experts, more than anyone. Right? So that's, I think, what you want as Oregon continues to build their pursuit to be able to win that ever-elusive national championship. You have this class with these potential commits and maybe signees, certainly down the road that we're talking about in this particular edition of the program. You're talking about those guys, but you're also talking about the number 1 running back in the state of Texas, and the weapon that is Tredarian Ball. You're looking at Kendra Harrison, over there at tight end. Just close your eyes and imagine for just a moment. Jared Curtis at quarterback, Jackson Cantwell at tackle, Tredarian Ball at running back or in the slot. They've done a few things with him there at Texas High School in Texarkana. And then the freak athlete coming from North Carolina, that is Kendra Harrison. That is frightening. That is scary, and that should really be the selling point. I think one of the selling points, I should say, in really bringing all of these people together under one roof in Eugene, Oregon, is your pursuit of a championship. Let's bring everybody together. We're clearly going up in the right direction. Clearly one of the Big Ten's powerhouse programs right now. Come to Oregon, and we can turn that 0 into a 1. You got to imagine that that's part of the recruiting pitch, certainly right now for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. So that's kind of the way I see it right now. But some big time commitments, certainly coming up for the Oregon Ducks. So here's how things are going to kind of go down on TSOW. Right, we are going to have, of course, the commitment, as I said, on Sunday and on Monday. Monday night, I will likely record the newest episode of TSOW, and my reactions and the fallout and all of that will happen on Tuesday. So make sure you certainly stand out, stay around and pay attention and know that that's coming certainly down the road as well. Keon coming in once again here, if I can display the chat. There it is. And Dan knows Kirby really well. Yeah, you got the student and the mentor, although the student he's turning into a mentor for some people. Let's just put it that way. Dan knows Kirby really well. People seem to forget he was on Georgia's team in 2020, 2021. He was the defensive coordinator as well. That great 2021 Georgia defense. One of the best defenses in recent college football history. Kirby's a really good coach, but Dan knows him really well, and I believe he's going to get all three. It's just that's an interesting relationship and how it all started. It would be a full circle moment if on the way to Oregon's first national championship, if Dan and Kirby somehow meet in Atlanta yet again, because we know how the Dan Lanning era started. 2022, first game, he was the Georgia it's crazy that these games are scheduled so far out in advance. In 2022, Dan Lanning is coming off winning a national championship. In 2021 is the Georgia defensive coordinator. right? And then the next game, it's a neutral site game because it was in Atlanta against Georgia to open up the season. The very next game after that national championship victory over TCU. It's Oregon versus Georgia in that game, and we all kind of know what happened there. But it was kind of laid out for that possibility to happen this year. But we all know the Bulldogs and the Ducks, of course, falling in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. But that'd be so apropos. That'd be so apropos for something. That's the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Whether it was a quarterfinal or a semifinal, certainly a given year, that would be that would be interesting. That would tell a unique story. I'll just put it that way. If Dan can kind of get by Kirby on the way to really step up to that point as well, so that would certainly be something that would interest me. That would interest me as well. So. Yeah, very exciting times, I think, coming up here for Oregon football on the recruiting trail. And they got some big ones this summer. Jaira Edwards, a safety, and Brandon Arrington, a corner. It sounds like they're going to commit sometime in July. Brandon Arrington, the 5-star corner. Oregon should be feeling really, really good about him, certainly as well. Man, I love his length. Love his length on the outside. So he's coming out of the state of California as well. He was just on a visit, I think, recently this weekend, I think this past weekend or right now, something like that. He's visiting Happy Valley. He's on his way to Penn State. But Oregon, after his Oregon visit on the spring game, he set his commitment date. So I think those things are intertwined. And the Oregon staff actually visited Brandon Arrington over in his neck of the woods in California before he made the flight out here recently to Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, certainly as well. So that will wrap up this edition of that live show out west. The next time that I am going to be talking to you, we are going to know where Kayden Dixon-Wyatt is going to be playing his college football. We are going to know where Jared Curtis is playing his college football. So until then, I'm Ted LaRue. We'll see you in the next edition of That Show Out West.